So today we're going to be covering acrylic application. So grab a brew, take a seat, and let's get started. So in this particular video, I'm literally just covering application. I've left out the filing, everything like that, and just the application of the acrylic. So you can see, so I can basically try and tell you everything that I do from that, start to finishing my application, what I do and how I apply it. If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming again to watch one of my videos. And if you are new, please do subscribe. I try and share at least one long form video every week. I'm going to try and get that up to 2, so, God willing. And then I am doing shorts probably about 4 or 5 days a week. So there's plenty of content for you to enjoy. So I am starting off with my usual process here. I have gone in with a bit of talcum powder just to make sure we get any of excess oils out of the cuticles, and then I'm lifting up the cuticle. It's so hard. I need to change my angle a little bit. It's so hard to see, but basically you need to kind of almost get underneath that cuticle and lift it up. I'm not pushing it back as much as kind of easing it off the nail plate. So next, using a medium flame bit, I am going in. Now I go down the left-hand side of the cuticle and I'll do all 5 fingers, and then I go down the right-hand side of the cuticle. If I do it this way, I find that it really gets in there and gets that, gets proper into the corners, as it were, and gets everything off the nail plate. I used to do it in reverse all the way around, but the angle that I was getting just wasn't correct. So this is how I do it now. I've gone back to kind of the original way that I was doing it, and it's so much better. I think I first saw Liz Guild do that on her channel, and I shouldn't, and sometimes it's always worth looking at your education and changing where you need to, but sometimes you just don't need to. Then, as I say, I go down the right-hand side of the nail. Now, I don't know whether I mentioned before, but when you're going down the left-hand side of the nail, you need to be in forward, and in the right-hand side of the nail, I need to be in reverse. It's really important that you do it that way, because as well, that will help clean the nail plate. Otherwise, you're going to get kickback, and it's not going to lift it. It's not going to clean the nail plate how it should. Next step is to trim those cuticles. So this client doesn't need a great deal of work on her cuticles. I have done it in the past with her when I've been doing her nails more regularly. She was taking a break recently. So when I'm doing her nails more regularly, I find that I need to do very little with the actual scissors. I can normally just exfoliate it all off because our cuticles are really minimal. So, and obviously if you can do that, that's even better. Mainly because they don't need to kind of pick up scissors halfway through. And I quite like exfoliating. I think when you're exfoliating, there's less chance to clip or cut your client. Not that I ever do, in all honesty, and certainly with these particular scissors, I find that that's very, very unlikely to happen. So I'm just trimming any little bits of loose skin there, because we don't want anything catching. And I think I do go in with a buffing bit afterwards. Or no, sorry, I tell a lie. I go in with the flame bit again, just to buff any little bits off and make sure there's no hanging cuticles or anything that could get caught. once that's all done and I'm happy with how that looks, I will just go in and I will very lightly buff that nail plate. So this is a 240 grit and I'm using it on a speed of 1. Get a really good e-file. This is one of the things that I would always recommend. Make sure you have a really good e-file. So the 240 grit file, I just find that when I'm doing that, I can get those nice little etches in there. I am not over-filing the nail plate. I'm literally just dusting over. You'll see I'm not kind of in contact with the nail plate constantly. I'm just tickling it and I'm using a very light touch. It's so hard to kind of explain, but just really, really light touch. You don't really, you want to kind of feel the contact with the nail, but you don't want it to feel like it's filing away. You don't want to feel any heavy-handedness. We're literally just skipping over the top, so almost more touching the centre of the nail and then round the outside of the nail. And I don't want to kind of revisit spots too much. I try and go over in like a crisscross section like I would do if I was etching with a hand file. But again, I'm literally using the lightest touch. And I find that actually I've had my nails done places where people have been very heavy-handed with a hand file and have caused more damage with a hand file than they could ever do with an e-file. So I would say it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Do what you feel comfortable with. You could absolutely do this with a file. CJP tend to recommend a 150 grit file in like an etching motion. I have also, I mean, it really depends on the client. You need to look at your individual clients. But for one of my other clients, I don't use the sanding band at all. I use an etching tool. So I've got a little pad on the end of the tool and I'll just literally go in and etch her nails. It's only because there's just not enough room really to get in with my hand file bit there. Next we have tip application. Dun, dun, dun. So when it comes to your tips, make sure they fit the nail. You don't want to be forcing them on. They need to fit from sidewall to sidewall without any spaces, and they need to fit comfortably. You're much better picking the size up and then trimming them to shape. I've only left one nail in because I thought there's not much point in kind of showing you all of them, but I think there are other videos that I've got on my page where I have got that on, so please feel free to scroll back through some of the other ones. But yeah, I just wanted to show you that. Now I also line it up with the the knuckle. The joint above the the joint next to the hand. I need to work out what that damn bone is called, but so I join it up. I will literally put it there and I will make sure. I'm telling a lie. I thought I hadn't filmed the rest of them. I may have filmed a couple more, but I will. So I'll leave that in for you to watch. But I'm lining that up with where your ring would sit. What if anybody knows what that bit of the hand is called, or what the bit of the finger is where you'd put your engagement ring on? Let me know, because I want to say joint, but that could also apply to the other bits as well. So you need to line it up with that particular bone because you will find that your nails are so much straighter. In fact, my pointer finger or index finger is incredibly crooked. So I find if I line that up, it can actually make my whole finger look straighter. If I line it up with that joint by the knuckle, it's just so much straighter. If you want, let me know and I'll put a video. I do have a video somewhere showing exactly how I do that and how I fix a crooked finger. This particular young lady is very young. She's late teens, so has literally no problems at all with crooked fingers like my old arthritic fingers have. Now, I do my sizing probably a bit differently to other people. Because my hand rest isn't big because I'm mobile, I find this just the easier way to do it. So I'll take off, because I know most of my nails aren't wanting long nails like I have. They're wanting kind of a salon length, medium, maybe a long, that in their eyes. So I'll trim off the excess because it means that I can get kind of underneath them much easier. So I'll take off, say, half that length, as these tips are really long, and then I can get the client can get a better look and a better idea of how they want them, and then I'll trim them. And like I said, it just means I can get under there so much easier. So then I go in with my application. So I'm doing it around about a 2 bead method, I think, on this particular client. So I am working with acrylics. It's Nails by Ashley acrylic system, which I'm really enjoying working with. I think I might go back to CJP, but because I have more CJP powders that I could throw a stick at, and I'm not using them, and it's such a shame because they're just beautiful to work with. So I'm going to get myself some CJP monomer and start using them, I think. But you'll see here I'm very gently using the tip of my brush to shape the acrylic application and just tap, tap, tap that into place. And then I'll go in with my cuticle bead in a moment. So with the cuticle bead, just make sure you're tilting that nail down. I try and get the sides of it tucked in first, and then I'll blend it down the sides of the nail and towards the free edge. So you'll see there, just blending that really down. A really gentle touch so I don't wipe away the apex, and also allow it to sit on the nail a little bit. Remember, while it's in this relatively moldable state, you can use your brush to get that shape in as much as you want. So I'm using the belly of the brush to make sure it's relatively flat on the sides, and at the tip as well. As I said before, I haven't left in any of the filing, but I absolutely can do that. That's not a problem. I just wanted to focus more on application. I'm using kind of I don't know if anybody watches Queen Diana on TikTok, but I thought she frames it perfectly. And she says tap, tap, hold, because you want to allow that second before it goes onto the nail for it to polymerize, because otherwise you're just putting a puddle on the nail. So you literally just so I'll bounce in my brush I'll bounce in my powder 3 times, and then I will go on to the nail. Now, when it comes to actually picking up the monomer as well, I go into the monomer first, obviously, and I'll really make sure I saturate that. I burp it, so that means pushing the brush towards the bottom of the dappen dish until all of the bubbles come out of it. That's super important. And then I gently wipe the side twice, and then I'll bounce it in my powder 3 times. And once again, once I'm happy with the shape, I go in with the cuticle, and you'll see here how it holds its shape. And I'm just tucking that into the cuticle. I'm trying to get that tucked right in there, and then I'm blending down. There you go, just nicely down the side. I think I might have gone in after this and put another little bead on. If you need to do that, absolutely do that. That is not a problem at all. Sometimes you need it for structure. So this was a fresh set, and I wanted to make sure it was the structure was there. Infills are sometimes easier, sometimes not. It really depends on the infill, but I like an infill because I've already got the structure and the shape pretty much. I'm just then putting another bead at the back of it, as it were. So you'll see there, that shape's really nice. And then I go in with the next nail. Again, I'll leave you to watch this. I'm not going to ramble at you, but please, if you have any costumes, if you have any costumes, we're not at Halloween yet, Ali. So if you have any questions, let me know. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you do in the day. Let me know what you're doing today, rather, and let me know where you are from in the world. I would love to hear that. I find it really interesting. I try and do lives and stuff on TikTok, or I used to. I've not done them for a while, and I love hearing from where people are from. So let me know where you're from, and also let me know if you want me to do lives on here. I can absolutely do that. I ramble as much as I do now, but I'll be able to actually answer in real time any questions that you're interested in. I'll just bust out my old Angelina, which is what I call my fake hand, and I'll show you some techniques and all that kind of thing. So if you want that, let me know. But I'll leave you to watch, and any questions, as I've said probably about 6 million times, let me know in the comments. So if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed this and at least found it relaxing, or, you know, you've had some of the questions answered. The final look's coming up in a moment. As I say, I didn't put the design on because, do you know what? It's relatively simple, but if you want me to do a tutorial on that, I'll absolutely do that. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye now.